Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in another session of this series of webinars that we are hosting from Journalist Fund Europe to know more about the experiences of other colleagues, about how they worked on their investigations, what tips they have to share with us. So today we are going to talk with Ana Tudela from Datadista, which is an organization focused on data journalism in Madrid, Spain. She will talk about the dark trades in the water of the cheap meat big business, an investigation that received many recognitions in different parts of the world. So it's very interesting to know more about that investigation, but also and mostly about how they understand data journalism from Datadista, how Ana and Antonio, his colleague in Datadista, work every day. Also, we will listen to Daiva. I don't know how to pronounce correctly your surname.
Repečkaitė.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing that for me. Daiva is the co-author of the project Cinderella Cyclist, which is also a wonderful investigation and wonderful in terms of the impact it had, and that talks about the missions and the relationship with cycling and how it is managed in the European Union. So we will listen to her experience working on data journalism in that project and in her career in general. So as you know, they were supported by the Earth Investigation Program from Journalist Fund that supports journalists all around the world, always related their investigation with the interest of the European public. But there are environmental investigations, different approach, different nationalities, the members of the teams, and they are always cross-border investigations. So we can see what is going on in different parts of the world at the same time, different geographies, and what impact it has in the planet, in the environment. So you can apply for this grant. Remember that the next deadline, we have a deadline each 3 months, but the next one is next week. So if you have a project in mind, please let us know if you need some assistance with that. So no more time, because we are here to listen to our colleagues, Ana and Daiva. Ana, you want to start?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much for joining.
You might have to admit the people right now. I don't know. So thank you very much, Daniel. And thank you, Journalism Fund, for letting us split a little bit more our job and for the support for this investigation. That the first thing I would like to say is that Datadista do investigation that take months. So you really need support from that kind of organization like Journalism Fund. This investigation took at more than 7 months. So it's very important to have this support. So thank you, the Journalism Fund, for this. And I will share my presentation with you so you can understand the kind of work we do at Datadista. So let me know if you can see my desktop right now. Yeah. Okay, well, this is Aragon. We call it the Savage Kingdom of the world pork mega producers, and I will explain why. These pictures I show you first is kind of an spoiler of our investigation. This is the end of the path. We normally work with data, and then we have a claim that we used from the beginning of Datadista 7 years ago. That is kind of in English, after data, wear your shoes. In Spanish sounds a little bit better, is después de los datos, suela de zapatos. That means that where data took us, where data tell us that there is something to look on the field, we must go there, we must go on the ground, we must take our drone and see exactly what's going on. And this is the picture you are seeing here, but I will explain what you see afterwards. First of all, I would like to tell you that when we investigate with data, it took us months, first of all, because we must understand the context of what we are going to tell. And this is to see every kind of aspect that is affecting our story. So we will start in Spain with a success story. If we look at the rankings, because Spain is the third producer of wine in the world, the third producer of citrus, the first producer of red fruit in the European Union, and this is really crazy, the third producer of pork meat in the world. And that means that Spain is only after the United States and China, that are much bigger countries and that have a system of production really industrial. So this is quite a lot. We surpassed Germany some years ago. Now we are the first producer of pork meat in Europe. And it's very important to understand that this is because we are exporting most of the meat we are producing. Our production double the needs for internal consumption here in Spain. So, but there is an upside down of this success story. How has Spain achieved that? We have intensified every production of agriculture and of farm here in Spain. We have passed from every dry, like the olive trees, who used to be watered by the rain. Now we have put it into irrigation. We have changed even the way in which we have the trees. Normally there was old ones, very big ones, separating from one another like 10 meters. Now they are all together, they have just one foot, and this is what we call the super intensive oil, but they need a lot of water. And as you know, because of climate change here in Spain, we have a huge problem with water. We also have industrialized the meat production. Normally it used to be extensive, but now we have these huge industrial farms. And why it is very important to talk about data when we talk about environmental issues and when we talk about climate change. The reason why we do this kind of journalism, that is our specialization, data journalism, is that is denialism. I mean, it is a huge movement, especially from far-right parties, denying everything. And here in Spain, there was this false debate, even denying that macro farms exist, just because there is no definition clearly about what is a macro farm. So what did we do? Data help us to see how can you find what is a macro farm. And this is because there is a registry here in Spain, but also in the whole European Union, is the State Register of Emissions and Pollutant Sources, is the translation more or less, that tell you those farms that have more than 1,000 fattening places, animals, or more than 400 mothers, they emit so much methane and ammonia that they must register like a pollutant industry. So they are so big that they have to be registered, telling exactly their position, their geolocalization, and exactly how many animals do we have and how much do we emit. So you are so big that you have to be registered, so you are macro. And so we found this kind of way of supporting that there is macro farms in Spain, and there is no way for denialism on this, like the far-right parties pretending here in my country. So first this, understanding what you are talking about. This is just for you to see what I was talking. This is the traditional olive tree we used to have here in Spain. I put you this because this comes from a former investigation we made, but what is important in environmental we have found is that when you start using data, normally there are a data set or there is an investigation that took you to some other place that make you find another focus, another investigation possible, and you can be crossing data set all the time, because in environmental and climate change issues, many times everything is so related that it is really useful to follow one investigation after another. So we made this investigation some years ago that was called Intensive Spain. you see here how were the traditional olive trees, and this is how they are now producing them. Like I told you, you can see how has this changed, and also you can see here how many trees have been put, hectares, I mean, have been put into irrigation of olive trees. This is just some data, but there was another investigation afterwards we made. It was about water, because anytime we investigate something from the beginning of Datadista, that the environment and climate change was one of our main focus, finally took us to the water. Okay, it was clear that there was something to do always with water, especially with underground water. Okay, well, you have here, this is what we learn in Spain at school. We learn about rivers, and you normally, I think this happens in many countries, we know our surface water quite okay, but we don't know something else that normally the authorities doesn't show us. And this happens in many countries, and that's the reason why we have treated so poorly that kind of treasure. There is a treasure map, is this is the aquifers in Spain, the underground water. We take care of this treasure? Not at all. This is the situation. This comes from another investigation, but it is also a data set that led us to this one that we are going to talk about. We have damaged the 44% of the underground water bodies that we have here in Spain. We have polluted them mainly with nitrates, or we have overexploited them. And in some cases, both things. We have overexploited and polluted with nitrates or pesticides, or with saline water because of the intrusion of the water from the sea. So we have a problem now because there is no rain anymore. We have huge droughts, we have high temperatures that provoke transportation, and there is a water directive here in Europe that says that this is the future water for human consumption, but we have damage and we have the problem now. So there are, you can see here many kind of damages we have provoked, but you can see here in datadista.com. We have also created this interactive map that is, we think, pretty useful because it lets you know how is the water under your feet. You can geolocalize yourself. You can see, or you can write an address, or you can just point on the map, and you can see exactly every pressure and the situation of every underground water body we have here in Spain. And this is the information that Spain and every European country is given to the European Commission because of the share cycle of the water directive. So we extract from thousands of pages all those data that let us know where was the main problems. Okay, so when we mix, you cross all those data, you can find investigation like the one we did with Mar Menor. This is also caused by underground water, but I'm trying to go faster. This is an aquifer polluted that is this is the aquifer, and the farmers have been extracting polluted water because of the fertilizers, but it was also, they need to desalinize, the process of desalinization of this water because of the contact with the Mar Menor, and this provoked a spill full of nitrates, and they put it into the Mar Menor directly, so they cause a disaster and a damage. This is Las Tablas de Daimiel. It's a national park protected by all the figures you can imagine, the legal figures, and this is the state. This should be water, but we have also damages, and thanks to data, you can see why. This comes from an investigation, underground water bodies. You can see in black how damaged is the aquifer that is affecting Las Tablas de Daimiel. And you can see here the crops that are put into irrigation. Those are vineyards that we have put into irrigation also. So it's exactly, you can see how it matches with the aquifer that we have damaged. And this is another one, and you can see how it also matches with the wells that are legal, because we have also thousands of illegal wells, but with the legal ones, you can see here how we can cause the problem. So I could go also with another one, but we have been investigating this for many years. Probably you have listened about Doñana. We have also investigated this case. This that you are seeing here should be full of water. This is the Olaya permanent lagoon. It should be permanent, but it is not anymore. This year has been the second year in a row that it has become dry completely, and this hasn't happened ever in history. And you know that there is a sentence from the European Court because Spain hasn't taken care of this treasure of this national park. Okay, this is the image of how they are still watering the strawberries even with the problem of the park, and how are connected the overexploited aquifers with those parts in yellow and red that you can see, where in yellow are the legal strawberry fields, but in red you have the illegal ones that have been working there and extracting water from the aquifer for decades. Okay, this is the sentence. And one of the things we like very much in environmental is trying to see the visualizations that help to understand what we are talking about. These data that are coming from WWF, this is an NGO that has been working, that in fact was born to protect the national park, Doñana. They gave us the data and we managed to localize them in this map where you can see every red dot let you know where you can find an illegal plantation of berries in around Doñana affecting the aquifer. So this is another way of showing how data can help to understand. And anyone could see this is happening, but they haven't closed it. So let's go to the investigation that we were talking about, that we are really happy that the Spanish part of the investigation have received recently the Climate Journalism Award. And this has many things to do with how we work with data, especially with a leader that is Antonio Delgado, who is a specialist of data journalism here in Spain, very known for years, and how we managed to arrive to this. First of all, you can see here how the dots of the macro farms can match with these red points, where you know that there are special pressure of the farms, following those tables sent to the European Commission for the safe cycle of the water directive. So we decided that it was very important, when we saw all this information on previous investigations, that we have to look. Yep.
Please, yes, now it is.
Okay. All right. That we have to look at Aragon, what was happening there, and that's what we ask, and I encourage you to do it because it's really helpful to the journalism fund for doing it. And so we focus in Aragon because in 2017, for the first time, Aragon surpasses Catalonia on the number of pigs in intensive farms. So we had to look at there what was going on. You can see here how has been increasing for years. Or other things that we do is that I mean, my background is financial journalism. So we look at the accounts of the companies who are working on the field when we are studying that kind of sectors and economic sectors. So what we find there is that there were in 2021 nearly 10 million animals distributed across 4,000 and almost 600 active farms in Aragon, of these ones that must be registered in this registry I talked to you before. So that means something is that we are talking about a very depopulated area, an area who has really small villages, very far away one from another. And so it was very easy for the big companies to expand their sector there. And the reason was that Catalonia was full of farms already, but they saw an opportunity of business, a huge opportunity in China because of the illness of the pigs there in China. So, and they tell it like this in their accounts, the annual accounts. So they decided to go to Aragon and to reproduce their model there. And how is this model? It's important to understand also to know why do you will find this kind of data? Why do you find that in some special or concrete or specific municipalities, you are going to find dozens of or macro farms or industrial farms, like for example, in Tauste or Ejea de los Caballeros, that are not very big town halls, where they have more than 50 industrial farms in each of them. And there is a reason for that, and is that the model is, I don't know how exactly works in other countries. Here in Spain, we have huge companies, huge groups. It is incredible also, like I told you before, that we have 2 companies already at the top of the list of the mega producers, the worldwide pork mega producers, and where you only find, like I told you, companies from the United States, China, some from Brazil, but not many. And there are 2 Spanish companies there. They are the owners of almost everything, okay? They provide the animals, they provide the medicines, they provide the food, and the farmer, who is a farmer without animals anymore, not like traditionally used to be, the farmer is the one who put the infrastructure, let's say the premises, and the labor, and very important, is the one in charge of the management of the manure. So any responsibility that comes from the pollution, from the most, let's say, dangerous for the environment part of this business, goes to the small farmer, who is many times a self-employee or a small or medium company. Okay, so that's it's important to know why. When we started investigating what was happening, we saw how they established their feed factories very close to the slaughterhouses, and they start integrating farms all around it. And that's the reason why there are so many. So there are hundreds in a really small region, because they need to cut as much as possible the transport. And to do this, they need to integrate farms really close to the slaughterhouse and the feed factories. So we talk with farmers, and I must tell you, it was really difficult. I mean, they are afraid of talking with the press. They have a clear indication of the big companies, the group for which we are working, not to talk with the press, not to talk about the model of business. We had to meet them in a different village, in the house of a friend, without knowing that we were going there, because they are really pressed, and of course, everything was off the record. They explain us that their margins, the big part of the margin goes to the group, of course, to the integrator, to the big company. But for them to get some money, they cannot go further with the manure of 5 kilometers from the farm. What happens with us when you have so many farms? That they are spreading the manure on the same land once and again and again. So we, and in specifically Antonio Delgado, trying to find a data set that can explain what was going on because of this. And he found it. And this is a data set of Aragon who tells you the level of fertilization of every parcel. So he analyzed 1.8 million parcels in Aragon, and he found that more than 25% were above the legal limits. Where were then? In those regions where they have put concentrate that much these farms. So we have been investigating also underground water. So we thought, probably if you concentrate this amount of manure on the same land once and again, probably you will create a problem in underground water. So first of all, like I told you, after data, wear your shoes. We went there, we took the drone, and it is incredible. I mean, you can see full of dots on a map, but you need to see with your eyes. You need to see, to put the drone on the air and to see one farm after another, and then see really fresh the manure just around the farm. They don't have a space anymore, so they just put it there in the air. This is polluting with methane and ammonia, and this is also causing effect on the aquifers. We use our answer. We use our own sources, I mean the drone, and we go there and we talk, but we also, like you will know in data journalists, we make several FOIA requests to get other information. This other image you have on the right shows you, this was received from the authorities, one of the farms that were had a penalty, a very small one, I must say, because of this kind of treatment. They have, I mean, this is really the worst part. They don't have isolate at all the manure, and it's like a pond. So after this, I mean, there are a lot of people here in Spain who is drinking, the tap water is coming from aquifers. Okay, so when you have aquifers with a problem, you have pollution, especially with nitrates, probably we have found it in other parts of Spain, you will have a health issue. And we thought probably we will find it here also because it is crazy, the levels of nitrates that we can find in the tables, in the data sets from the environmental ministry, because, you know, the levels in the aquifers of nitrates can be, the limit for human health is 50 milligrams per liter. You know that nitrates, what causes you in health, especially is damaging old people, pregnant women, children, but about some level affects everyone because it affects to hemoglobin. So it's a problem for heart because it causes that the oxygen doesn't arises like it used to. But well, and of course, we found what we thought in the General Registry of the Public Health in Aragon, but also in the one of Spain of the Ministry of Health. But for putting an example of the data we found, there were 93 samplings with level of nitrates above the legal limit for human consumption. And that was only one of the years I am giving you the data. And this was affecting the tap water of almost 7,000 inhabitants in that region. So again, after data were used, we went there to those places, those villages, really small ones that had this health problem. And yeah, what we saw, and you can see it in the investigation on our website, when we saw is that they are obliged now to drink water from the bottle that is spread by the county hall, especially in summer, because when the levels of the surface water go down, in the aquifer with which they were mixing the water has an increase of how much water comes from the aquifer, and because it's polluted, they cannot drink it anymore. So we went there and they tell us this story. And this is more or less, I don't know if I went too far with the time, Danny, or more or less this is what I wanted to explain. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anna. It was perfect on time. Now it's the turn of the Daiva. I will share the presentation for you, but you can start introducing yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, it's a great pleasure to talk to you today. And I think we didn't coordinate in any way with Anna, but there are some messages that both of us share about our data-based investigations, and one of them is time and the importance of time and the multiple iterations that a data-based investigation has to go through until we can prove a hypothesis. So now we're on the second one. Can we go to the first for a bit, Daniel? So yes, so this investigation, also funded by Journalism Fund, started from a conversation we had with Barbara, and eventually we included another colleague, Zoltan, and then the three of us together covered 4 countries in the European Union. And the reason we wanted to do this investigation is that we heard in different cyclist forums, and Zoltan is a cyclist himself, that some of the infrastructure that is being built with public sector funds is not really safe for cyclists to use, or it's leading nowhere, or it's just creating a lot of inconvenience by design for cyclists. So those things, those complaints, mostly state as anecdotal evidence that something is off with the policy or with the oversight. And we started this investigation with a goal to actually verify some of this information that we were seeing anecdotally, and also to prove the scale, to see that or if we can, to prove that there's something off with the policy. And by policy, in this case, we mean that there is a problem with the oversight of very decentralized EU structural and cohesion funds that finance a lot of the cycling infrastructure. So we can go to the next slide now. And then, as we were preparing our grant application, we started thinking what kind of data sources can we use to, first of all, to show that these countries are interesting to talk about, but also that we can show the impact of these policies. And first, then looking around for comparable data sources where we can find information about different countries, we landed on cyclist fatality data. So this is a good data source. People care about death. If cyclists are dying, clearly something is not working. And especially if there are lots of discrepancies, the question is then, how do we make sense of a data file like this? And you don't have to see the actual numbers to see that some of these numbers on the data file are 3-digit numbers, and some are pretty much zeros. But some of these countries are very large countries, or if they're not large countries, then some of them also have a lot of cyclists. So when there are more people cycling, more things will happen to them. And also, if, for example, a country like where I come from, Lithuania, has quite a considerable number of cyclist deaths per population, that's something that is worth including. But then it doesn't go the other way around. That, for example, when a country has very few cyclist deaths, like Cyprus, for example, here, or Malta, does it mean that it's very safe for cyclists, or something else is happening? Next slide, if you may. And then, so we need a different source of statistics to show and to compare our countries. Ideally, we would have the data to say that out of the cyclists that this country has, this is how many die or get injured on the roads, but we don't know the total population of cyclists. So then we settled for this file, so which is how many cyclists per year die per million population, because yeah, if that's a large number, it shows that it's really unsafe in this country to cycle. But then, and this also shows why it's important to talk about a country like Romania, where Zoltan is based. But then, if almost nobody dies, can we say that the country is safe for cyclists? And when we talk to actual cyclists, we know that it's not the case. Maybe people are so terrified of cycling that they take a lot of preventative measures, or they don't cycle at all. So this is a problem with this statistical file. So then, with these considerations in mind, and with a bit of an overview of what we know from cyclists and what we know from different reports and research, we applied for a grant, and thankfully we got it. And if we may next go to the next slide, then we started looking into the administrative data of EU-funded projects that were supposed to improve the situation of cyclists. And some governments are very proud to present that, look, with EU funding or with whichever source of funding, we have built new bike lanes. We created new cycling infrastructure, as if this will really make a difference for cyclists. But then we wanted to see whether this is really usable and safe for cyclists. And we called our project Cinderella Cyclists because Cinderella is a fairy tale character who lives with a mean stepmother, and they live in a monarchy, and the prince of this country then invites young ladies to join a party at the palace, and the stepmother tells Cinderella that she can join the party along with the woman's biological daughters, but only when she finishes household chores for the entire family. So in a way, we thought that this is a kind of metaphor that cyclists can get from A to B in the system that there is in our countries, but it is extremely laborious, risky, and pointlessly time-consuming. So we wanted to see if these projects are making it better or making it worse for cyclists, and we have a lot of data. So this is the Lithuanian website for EU-funded data, but there's everything except what we need. So there's a lot of funding data and partners and so on, but there's no way to filter that this is, for example, this is the funding that went straight into cycling infrastructure. So what did we do about it? Next, please. Then we used a mixture of web scraping, FOI requests, and also, for example, in the Lithuanian case, there are pretty good machine readable files, spreadsheets, and then we could filter if the project description mentions anything about cyclists, and then we had to go through some of the projects manually and verify. And finally, for example, in the Lithuanian case, I filtered only the projects that have to do with cycling. And what makes it more difficult is that they were often mixed with the pedestrian infrastructure. So I couldn't say that this is how much money was spent on cycling, but still, this was the best data source that there is. Still, even with this solution, it's not entirely clear where. So we know the city, we know the municipality, but we don't know what the cycling infrastructure is connecting and where it is going. Next slide, please. So for this, to find out, we had to look at project descriptions, look for any patterns, look for any mentions of streets, and I started building a map to see if the priorities of municipalities of where they upgrade or build new cycling infrastructure match in any way where accidents happen. And I got accident data from the police, and on the map it was very clear to see that there are several locations where accidents are more likely to happen, but the planning and the building of cycling infrastructure doesn't really happen there. It just happens where it is convenient for the municipality. And my colleague in Czechia found that sometimes when there are some kind of land issues or some private or church land is between two pieces of a bike lane that is built with public funds, then it's just left like that, which means that cyclists have to go on a road and risk their lives. But then they don't solve the land issues before planning the bike lane. They just like to have this nice number that we built so and so many kilometers of bike lane. So next slide. And then we also looked at the project selection criteria about what can be done with projects or if there are any limitations. And for example, I found looking at the different policy documents that the rules for building cycling infrastructure are more lax when the bike paths are built in pieces. So there is this kind of incentive for authorities to build them in small pieces under 2 kilometers in Lithuania, and this doesn't help cyclists get from A to B where they need to go. Next one, please. But then, so now we know this, and we have in Malta, for example, where I'm based, and I was also looking at the projects. It's quite easy because there are only a handful of projects. In Lithuania, there were over 70 projects mentioning cycling infrastructure. So it wasn't realistic to verify all of them and see if any of them connect any meaningful places in the city or village. And at the same time, it was necessary to show the scale and not to leave it as anecdotal information and several bad apples, as authorities would like us to think. So I used the sampling method. I sort of classified the spreadsheet into large cities, smaller cities, taking into account budgets and the years, and then I came up with a sample of 15 projects, which then I went to the public procurement websites to collect all the possible, next slide please, all the possible data that they had downloadable. So there you can find the contracts, which companies built those bike lanes, which companies were hired to design them, and what had to be done to build them. So for example, in some cases they were cutting trees to build bike lanes, which is a kind of clash between two environmental objectives. Then in some cases they were building bike lanes where disrespecting the recommended width. So they were doing anything, some of these municipalities, to avoid any inconvenience to car traffic that emerged from looking at these documents. And next, please. And then when we finally had our sample, our maps of selected projects and names of specific streets and so on, and sensitive localities, for example, where conflicts with the community had happened. Then we used some crowdsourcing. So we asked in cyclist groups to send us photos of any problematic bike lanes, and especially in Czechia, my colleague had a very good response from cyclists, and she verified some of these selected reports, and then we could show the scale of this problem. Yes. So if you have access to the slides, you can find all our publications in different languages. So we were published in the EU Observer. We published in the media in our countries that we usually work with, and we got some republications or references in blogs and other articles. And we were one of our editors was contacted by an NGO that was really shocked to hear that this is happening with public funds that are dedicated to cycling. And in a way, our findings break this narrative that funding is what is needed from the EU. This narrative that is often iterated that cities know what their residents need, just give us some funding, some funding. Clearly, some cities don't really care about cyclists, and in the in-depth analysis of these sampled, selected projects, there was evidence that, for example, they disregarded the safety audits, or that they couldn't say if any cyclist attended a public consultation for the project. So clearly, some cities didn't really know what they were doing, and since they had no rules, they could improvise as they wanted, just as long as they built something for cyclists. They just tried to make the job easy for them. Now there have been some changes. Cycling infrastructure data from the next funding period is logged separately, so countries now have to report on how much EU funding goes into cycling-related measures. So if someone was to do a similar investigation in the future, they will not have so many obstacles just getting the data and filtering. The European Parliament adopted the cycling resolution, and it seems that some MEPs are really passionate about making it clear that there has to be quality cycling infrastructure. And very recently, the European Commission published a cycling declaration with an emphasis on safety, and hopefully then the cities that haven't been getting the message will get it. However, at the same time, despite all these developments happening at the highest level, to our knowledge, no controversial project has been reviewed or let alone redone or changed completely. And there are, where I live in Malta, there are new road projects and new developments that still keep cyclists at Cinderella's position. So yeah, the good news that I can say is that now there will be more data, and more scrutiny hopefully will be possible. So thank you so much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Daiva. And if you have questions, any of you, let us know. You can raise your hand or do it through the chat. I know, Anna, for example, if you have some comment regarding the what Daiva said, did you find coincidences in the work you do? I have some questions too, but I would like to know first, how do you find, is it kind of cross-border conversation this? So what do you think, Anna?
Yeah, I mean, of course, in the way in which she works, it is very similar to one we consider is the great one to do the things. I mean, to take official data and to cross things that should be seen to understand what's going on, especially with public money. It's really important to see how the investments are being used, and if they are being useful. You know, here in Spain, again, the far right is creating that kind of idea that the cycling ways are a thing of the left. I don't know why. So they are destroying what has been done in the past 4 years, even when we have received next generation, I mean, European funds, and maybe we have to give them back. So it's really important the job that they have been doing, and in different countries, to compare how the security of the cyclists can be matched with the investment and with the kind of cycling ways that we are creating.
I would like to know when you decide that an investigation, that you have a story, that you have an investigation there, because it's a very concrete information. It's a very concrete data. The very first beginning of a data journalist investigation, you see a number, you see, how do you detect that something can become a big investigation, and you start to do that? How do you work on that?
I mean, on our side, we like to think about data journalism like any other primary source for investigative journalism. I mean, there are journalists who receive a leak of, I don't know, 1,000 pages or hundreds of thousands, and this is just the start. I mean, they have to study this, but then they have to ask experts. They have to see other sources if this have sense or not. They have to go on the ground and everything. Or I don't know, you have a sore throat that calls you and tells you, oh, great story, but you have then to do all the journalist's work. So for us, it's just a question of having the radar on. For example, when we started with environmental things, we were in fact investigating real estate issues, corruption all around the Spanish coast. This was the craziest thing we have done, and it's how Datavista started. In fact, we took a motorbike, we put a camera, and we go all through the Spanish Mediterranean coast to see the effects of the bubble burst. And we found when we arrived to Mar Menor that the problem there was not the building, but was the irrigation. But we couldn't stop there because we were doing something different. The investigation was other, and the data sets were different. But we had the radar, and we knew we have to start investigating this in some moment. We looked for the money to do it, and finally, 1 year afterwards, we did that one. Then we knew that we have to do, because of the Mar Menor investigation, we realized there was something to do with the underground water. So we did this huge investigation based on data on aquifers and the pressures and the damage to the groundwater bodies here in Spain. And because of this, we have the radar. Why are they damaged? Let's have a look. How are we producing agriculture and farm? One thing took you to another, and that's how sometimes you find a data set that tells you, let's make this story bigger. And sometimes you find a story and you look for the data set that explains you what's going on. It depends, but it's a question of having the radar on, I think.
And I think, if I may add, that it's really brilliant to focus on this daily life issues. Water, everyone needs it. If someone cannot drink their water, it is a problem. I think it's very easy for people to empathize, and also the maps. I only wish I had the complete data set to put everything on a map and say that, can you safely go by bike to school, or how far can you safely go by bike from this locality? So this is a dream one day. I hope either me or someone else will do it eventually when we have more data. And to see when there is an investigation. And I think that's one way, is to look for gaps between the narrative or the PR and the lived reality. And since I live between two countries, I know a lot of multi-cyclists. I've done some feature articles about the issues that they face. And especially during the pandemic, there was this talk about, maybe more people will start to cycle. Great. And then everything just went back to car obsession. And then when I was sharing it with the people I know in Lithuania, they would tell me, oh, but we have the same problem. So it's not specific to Malta. Okay, so that already tells me this is a cross-border problem. So how do countries with such different administrative structures have the same problem? And then I went to a seminar, a workshop with a kind of pitching clinic, and I pitched it as a cross-border investigation. And Barbara was there, and she said, well, actually, we have this problem too. And so clearly there's a cross-border problem. And so it cannot be explained away by something like, oh, you know, maybe this country's people, that, for example, there's too much sun or too much wind or too much snow in this country, so that's why people are not cycling, you know, as we often hear this kind of explanations.
Yeah, thank you. We have 2 questions in the chat. Do you want to do it? Do you want me to do it? I don't know if I have lost the chat for a minute. I can find it in a minute.
Yeah, about the forever chemicals.
One and Clara, you want to do the questions yourself, or I can read it? They are about PFAS topic. If you can be more specific about data collecting and what were your sources, and also about the impact. One asked about the impact of investigation at the local and national level. So what do you think?
Yeah. On the Forever Pollution project that Datavista is part of, well, the data, first of all, you were asking, Daniel, when are the data coming? How this start? When you decide? In that case, there is I don't know if you know the Forever Pollution project, a huge project. I mean, the Journalism Fund, in fact, is also supporting this. It's a huge project where there are some, let's say, first phase media with Le Monde leading most of the investigation, who collected investigations made by different scientists following the same structure of investigative work, so they can compare and make a standard map where you can localize the 17,000 points where they have found PFAS in water or soil or so. In our case, what we did is that they asked us, could you be the Spanish part of this project in Europe? And we say, of course. I mean, working with such a great group, it was really great. And they organized it incredibly well, really. They give us documents and the data sets and everything. But we told them, we have some sources and we can add some points with new investigation from scientists that are not included. So we can I don't know, it was kind of 170 more dots in the Spanish case, but also there was an investigation here in Spain sampling with people. They look people from 18 years old to 65 years old all over Spain, every region, every sector, to see who has PFAS on their blood, on their nails and their hair. And they found that everyone already had them. Those scientists have been trying to repeat this investigation for a decade, but they didn't have the money and the ministry didn't let them do it. But now they are trying to move this again. So data come from different sources, but what we say is that every point we have put on the map is not that there are no other ones, but you can be sure that someone, as a scientist, making an investigation following scientist way of working, have found PFAS on a level that is above the limits established. So that's the first time that has been done in Europe. And of course, those countries like Belgium, for example, or Italy, where they have factories who are directly producing PFAS, not only using products who has PFAS, they found the biggest pollution there, and they have even cases on trial. But this is where there are a bunch of scientist papers that were putting their data for this project.
Daiva?
Yeah, I think I put the link to this investigation. I think there's still space to get in touch with the team. So Anna knows much better because I wasn't part of this one.
And about the impact, there was also a question about the impact of your investigation.
Well,
yeah, so that's it's difficult to say that but clearly people were talking about it but I believe there were also movements in parallel already that when they were developing the new rules for funding. Then it's very interesting to compare how authorities respond to our evidence. So some of them would say that no, this is just that this is just what we can do given our limitations. But for example, the Lithuanian officials, when I asked them, they said, yes, we know there is a problem and we're working on it. We will have this and this and this. They have this vision of the future that obviously we cannot verify within the framework of our investigation. We have publishing deadlines. So only if someone decides to do this Cinderella Cyclist round 2, for example, and say that, okay, so 2 years passed, 3 years passed, how about your vision of where you will be verifying these projects and auditing them together with cyclist communities and so on? So what happened? Did you do it or not? So only then I think we will know if we have a follow-up. And this is something that maybe it's worth emphasizing, that there was another investigation that had to do with funding and this kind of decentralized projects that I did with another team. And in that case, we were interested to hear that the project was completely changed, the one that we kind of focused on, zoomed in to show that that this is really problematic. So the project was reformulated, everything was changed, but a lot of the information to tell a new story or to tell this maybe more hopeful story came because we decided without any extra funding to reconvene with the team and to follow up and to go to the location again and to check what it looks like. So I think maybe Daniel, if you're looking for like new ideas of new projects or funding streams, a follow-up fund would be really great to have, where journalists can go back to an investigation maybe 1 year later, 2 years later, next financing term, and then see all these people who are saying that yes, we are taking care of this problem. Did they actually, or did anything change?
I think Anna had something to add. I will ask you for finish after this response of Anna. I will ask you, both of you, so that you can think about it a little bit. One main tip, one main message about how to work with data, like that thing that you always remember when you are working, that maybe you can share with all of them, but after this response of Anna.
Okay, about the impact, first of all, we are really proud that you don't listen anymore about the no existence of the macro farms here, because we are really small. I mean, we are 2 people, 4 hands, but thanks to we publish our investigation in Datavista, but also at eldiario.es. So it has a big impact, especially on the left side, because it's a left, let's say, media, but also from the moment we published this investigation, there were every kind of media, every kind of newspaper from any side who use our way of definition of the macro fund or industrial fund, using which one has to be registered for talking about macro funds. So the politician cannot say it anymore, it doesn't exist, because there is a definition. So there is, first of all, an educational impact at the Spanish level. But there is also another one that made me feel quite proud, is that this region we were investigating, like I told you, are very small villages, and because of the huge impact of the pork business, mostly everyone lives somehow of the pork industry. I mean, on services to the industry, or directly they have a farm, or they have a bar, and the people who work in the farm eat there. I mean, there is so what this that is that they are silenced. I mean, they are really afraid of talking. But since there is this movement and they have been talking to us, we are in contact with them, they are more active, and they feel like there is a support, that there is that the Spain knows what's going on there. And the third impact on a national level, we were talking some months ago with the Secretary of State of Environmental Issues, and here in Spain we have a problem, is that you analyze the project of a macro farm, of an industrial farm, one by one. So if you put 7 around a small village, they will look like if there were only one, and then another only one, and then another only one. This has changed. Now they are integrating the impact of all of them. So telling Spain we have a problem there because we are very centralist and people didn't know really what happens there, putting into a map how crazy is the number of farms they have there, has changed something on the way the politicians are controlling the problem. So we like to think that we managed to have some important impact.
Right. So for finishing the session, for ending the session, what's your main message? What's the things that you always remember when you are working on the journalist, or maybe a main tip that you would like to share? Daiva, you can start now.
Yeah, so I think with data, first of all, don't drown. try not to drown. There are a lot of sources, and some of them are very labor intensive if you want to do them well. So I appreciate that we had a mentor, and sometimes when we're all going in our different ways, so I was looking more into documents and administrative data. One of my colleagues was looking more into the crowdsourcing data, and another of my colleagues was looking more into what the experts already have or NGOs already have. So the mentor was this kind of force that regularly told, okay, but then how does this come together? Because you have 4 countries, completely different data availability. So I think strategy is very important, but also openness to the fact that sometimes strategy will fail because you cannot obtain the same level of detail in each country or the same openness of the authorities. So it's good to have several parallel hypotheses that if one fails, then you can move on to the next, and then you feel that you have at least proven something or achieved something, and then towards the end come back to the labor intensive one.
Thank you. And Anna?
Well, first of all, I would say take care of the data you are working with, and that means clean them as much as you can, and especially understand what are you working for. And if it takes you months, weeks, whatever, to understand what the table is telling, and you have to ask people of the administration, experts, whoever, you have to understand very well what you are working for. Second thing, cross data sets, but do not become crazy. Again, is if you understand the data you are working with, you cannot cross everything. There is something, I'm going to spoil it. I'm sure, but Antonio Delgado says something in there. He's also teaching data journalism, and there is a graphic that it matches almost perfectly. That put all the times that Nicolas Cage has launched a film with the number of suicides in the United States, and exactly the same one. So you can think, oh, anytime that Nicolas Cage has a new film, the people suicide. No, you have to be sure that you are crossing data properly. You have to ask experts and know very well what you are working with. And finally, after data, wear your shoes. You have to go there to see what data tells you.
Thank you very much, both of you. And the people can follow you in social media and also can contact us if you need more information or being connected not only with them but also with other colleagues in other countries if you need co-keepers or assistants or sources that can improve your proposal, your application, or your investigation in course. So thank you very much, Anna and Daiva. Very impressive. I agree with Micaela in her comment in the chat. Very impressive presentations, and we wait that you enjoyed, all the people that joined us enjoyed the session, and see you next Thursday. We will talk about photojournalism with two environmental photojournalists. So it will be a great opportunity also to exchange some experiences. Thank you all of you, and especially to Daiva and Anna.
Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
And good luck with your grants if you're applying.
Yeah, do it.
Bye-bye.